In this lesson, we will learn how to construct a basic head. It's good to start by building upon a solid foundation for a more successful outcome. So we'll discuss different measuring techniques, and by using simple guides, we'll sketch out a basic head from scratch. Now I've gone ahead and set up different layers, one for the study of form, and we'll use that also for measurements, and one for our sketch we'll build up off of those measurements. So we'll go ahead and hide this head, and we'll focus on the form for right now. I'll go ahead and change my brush to a nice color that's easy to see for our guides. Okay, and I'll go ahead and hide what we don't need to see. Now it's good to start out with the overall skull head shape, and that's about a rounded shape, so we can go ahead and kind of mark that in. We'll go ahead and draw that spherical shape, just a nice round shape. Alright, now we can kind of mark in the center line to help us kind of figure out the overall placement. It's not quite in the center, let's kind of move it right about here. Now if we can imagine, this will be the top of the head, right in here. And if we kind of follow down to the bottom, we'll say right about in here, it doesn't have to be so far down. Alright. Now if we follow this guideline right in here, it will be the center of the head, but the top of the head in the back is a little bit higher up than the top of the face. The top of the face might be kind of right in here, depending on the shape of the head, but overall fall right about here where the hairline will be. Let's go ahead and mark that in. Now if we find the center line between the top of the face and the bottom of the face, we can go ahead and draw that in right about here, and that's where we find our eye line, right in there. Now if this is the width of the head, right over to here, if we kind of take that and divide that into thirds, right about right here and here, if we follow that down to the eye line, we'll find the placement of our eyes, kind of right in there. Now if we focus on the bottom half of the face area, it's helpful to divide it into fifths, because then we can find the markings or the placements of the nose and the mouth more accurately and very quickly. So let's go ahead and divide that area into fifths. What I like to do is take that top line and the bottom line, find the center line in between that, and kind of space it out just a little bit, right about there. We'll divide those markings also in half. We quickly have our measurement. Very simply. Let's go ahead and draw that in really quickly. Oops, right about there. Alright. Now, if we follow that second line down from the eye line, will be the location of our nose. Now, in most cases, it'll be the bottom of the nose, and in some cases, you'll find that's the furthest part away from the nose, depending on how long the nose is. But overall, it's a good rule to kind of assume that'll be the top part, the furthest away from the nose. And now, also for the lips, if we want to find that lip line at a relaxed position, we'll see that the second line up is where the center of the mouth, when the lips come together, is. Right about in here. We can go ahead and draw that bean in there. Alright, so now we have our overall markings and our overall measurements for our head. We can kind of draw the rest of our face in. It's kind of an oval shape. Kind of draw that in, down to the bottom of the chin. Right in there. Kind of a nice rounded shape, not too perfect. We can go ahead and adjust that later. Depending on the thickness of the jaw or the thickness of the cheekbones, we can all adjust this later. So let's go ahead and go to our sketch layer so we can start building on these measurements here. I'll go ahead and change the brush color again. Alright, I'll go ahead and hide what we don't need to see. So let's go ahead and start drawing in the overall shape of the head. We'll kind of start from the top, kind of bring it all the way down, keeping that same width, all the way down. This is the back of the skull line right in here. Keep that same roundness, all the same width. We'll go ahead and just stop right there at the eye line for now. Now if we wanted to go ahead and start drawing in the upper eyelid shape, we can go ahead and plot that in. Right about in there. Same for the other eye, right about here. Now if you notice this eye line right in here, the center corners of the eyes will always fall on this eye line. Now the back corners might not always fall there, so that's one thing to keep in mind when you're drawing out your face. You can have the eyes slanted up a little bit more, or down a little farther, or even falling right on the line, but in most cases it won't always be touching, but in this face we'll just go ahead and leave it there. Alright, Now we can go ahead and start drawing in the bottom part of that almond shape. If you imagine an almond just sitting on a string right there, it's kind of helpful to keep that overall shape in mind. Alright. Now one helpful unit of measurement is we can use this eye to measure out the proper distances. These eyes might be a little close together, so we can go ahead and test that. We'll go ahead and select our form layer. I'll just create a new layer for this one. We'll name it Eyes. Alright, so now go ahead and select a different color so it's easy to see our eye. Okay, so if I kind of trace over this eye shape here, just kind of mark it in, the overall shape. If I go ahead and copy that, if we moved that right into the center of both eyes, we can see, yeah, it is a little bit close together. We can space it out a little bit more. The overall distance between the center between the eyes will be one eye width. And the overall shape of the entire head, the width of it, will be about 5 eyes wide from the widest part. So if you kind of imagine it coming right down to here. So yeah, this eye needs to come out just a little bit further. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eyes wide for our face. That's a good unit of measurement. We can just go ahead and keep this eye just on the side for now. I'll go back to our sketch. We can go ahead and adjust that eye just a little bit more. Oops, not the entire layer. Right here. Just about right there. It'll give a more proper space in between the eyes. And same for this one. Kind of move that over evenly. Kind of keep it same distance apart. Alright, so that's a really good test. We can go ahead and keep the overall spacing accurate. I'll go ahead and select my brush again. Now we can go ahead and move on to the rest of the features of the face. Now if we wanted to draw out the nose, again this will be the furthest part away from the nose in many cases. And in some cases, like for men, it'll come straight down into the face, and that will also be the bottom of the nose. But for females it tends to be more round, and the bottom of the nose might be farther down, like right about here. We can go ahead and mark that in. Now to find, that'll be the bottom of the septum, by the way. So to find the outer wings of the alar, or the wings of the nose, one easy way to plot this in is to find right in the corner of the eye. We can kind of follow that same eye line down. We can find the distance apart for the nose. On average, the noses are about the same width apart as the eyes. So we can go ahead and use that as our measurement. Right about up here. And right here. We can kind of draw in our nostrils, kind of give it a nice little rounded scoop in there. Alright, so we have the overall width of our nose, and this will be the top of the bridge, if we kind of imagine if it's a rounded nostril, a rounded septum on the top of the nose. We'll go ahead and draw this shadow in just really quickly to remind ourselves that there's a bit of distance in there. And if you follow this overall eye shape, you can kind of find the bridge of the nose coming right down in here. Alright, so now moving on with the mouth. The way the mouth comes together, it falls right on the second line from the bottom again. And then in women especially, the lips are very plump, so we can see that being very noticeable. And in some men, the lips will be very narrow, so it might seem like there's more distance right in here. But for now, we'll just go ahead and mark in where the lips come together, assuming this is a female. Kind of scooping out and down. Very plump lips. Alright, and on average, if we kind of imagine the pupils right in here for our eyes, kind of falling right in there. If you kind of imagine she's looking straight forward, we can use that as a general guideline for the corners of the mouth. It'll fall usually right where the pupils are. And sometimes if the mouth is narrow or smaller, it might be a little bit farther inwards. We'll go ahead and assume it's just a relaxed mouth for now. Now the upper part, we can go ahead and mark that in. Remember there's several beans in there, giving that curved shape. And the bottom, we'll assume is pretty plump on the bottom. Kind of draw that in, not going all the way to the corner. Alright, just a simple mouth shape for now. Okay, then we can go ahead and draw in the upper eyelid where it will fall in. Right in there. And that brow line. Now one way to find the brow line rather quickly is if you go back to that eye measurement we have here, we can kind of take that same measurement. Let's go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees. And we'll find the proper distance we need. If we position that eye from the bottom part of the lid in a relaxed pose, we can find where the brow line, the topmost part of the brow line is. So let's go ahead and use that. That'll be the top of the brow, kind of following that same eye shape. Now women tend to have thinner eyebrows, so I'll keep it thin. I'll go ahead and mark in that same location over here, kind of assuming it's the same position. Alright, so that's a really quick way to find that measurement. We can also use this to test out the overall width from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the lip, depending on how thick that lip is. So it could be a little bit thinner, but on average it's one eye width apart. So go ahead and move that aside again. Go back to our sketch layer. Now to find the placement of the ears, we can do this rather quickly by following this eye line right about into here, and that will be the location of where the ear meets up with the face, and it'll kind of scoop outwards, forming a C. So go ahead and draw that in. It kind of comes upwards and matches the top of that eye line. Go ahead and scoop it upward in a C shape, and it comes down to the nose line right in here. Really quick, simple way to measure out where the ear will fall. Oops, not so thick right there. Same thing with the other sides. Go ahead and mark that in. Now if we keep in mind, the outer edge of the head is a little bit thicker than the inside of the face. It kind of tapers inwards a little bit, so the temples will be right about in here. So we can go ahead and start marking that in. Right about here for the cheekbone. Coming straight down. Same the other side. And that's why we can see just a little bit of the ear, because it's coming in at an angle. Go ahead and mark that in so we can see that angle in there. This ear's a little bit bigger, but that's alright. And we'll go and mark the bottom of the chin. Now one quick easy way to find the overall placement of the corner of the jaw is if we follow that mouth line. Normally that's where the jaw will fall in. So we can go ahead and mark that in. Right about in there. Now this is assuming this is a female. If it's a male, the jaw could be out a little bit further, even extending farther beyond that. But in most cases we'll go ahead and keep it narrow for females. Okay. So now we have our overall placement of the most important features on the face. Now if we mark in just the hairline, we can keep that also, keep that information in there. Go ahead and darken these lines in so we don't lose this information. And right about in here, kind of darken that in a little bit more. Alright, so there we have our basic face built up off of simple guidelines. We can add any elements we want to this. We can exaggerate the features if we wanted to. We can adjust certain things, move things around. But overall, the actual measurement of the face, if I go ahead and hide, go ahead and hide our guidelines, we can get this nice overall features of our face placed accurately. Now, and this is all just based off of simple guidelines for the center line, the eye line, the fifths, and the eyes being separated 5 eyes apart, 1 eye in between, at the third placement, or the 1/3 area of the face.